Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Friday, January 11th, 2019, and we're going to look at a 2020 presidential election prediction between Representative Tulsi Gabbard from the state of Hawaii. She announced today that she will be running for president of the United States in 2020 versus, of course, the incumbent president, Donald Trump. So the map looks a little bit different from where it was before. It does have different ways to display the map with a dark, light, contrast, and metallic theme, but I'm going to go ahead and stick with light for now. The map was pretty much just in beta when I was originally testing it. It's still in works. I mean, this electoral map is not finalized yet in terms of the way that it looks, but there have been a couple of things added. The colors are different in terms of Republicans and Democrats, made it easier on the eyes. The background definitely looks a little bit different. The good thing about this map is I'm able to change the amount of electoral votes that a certain state counts for. So if all of a sudden Washington becomes 50 electoral votes, throws them in there, and then they go wherever they actually end up based off the prediction. And then you see what is really possible and the true, I guess you could say, capability of the map itself, which is why I really want to stick with it. A lot of you, I wouldn't say necessarily disliked or liked it. I saw a pretty equal reaction between the like and dislike, but again, it's still getting refined, so if you guys don't end up liking it by the time that it's finalized, I probably won't stick with it, but there's just a lot more freedom with it. I'm able to change so much more than where there was before. I mean, they've even included green with, I guess, lean, likely, and toss-up, which is a great help, considering that a lot of these future electoral predictions, even though they will be between a Republican and a Democrat, I may throw in a third-party candidate as a what-if scenario, again, giving me a lot more freedom than 270 to win. But, again, back to today's video. Tulsi Gabbard just announced she's running for president. That took me by surprise. I really expected Bernie Sanders to announce to run for president, and being completely honest with you, if she doesn't win the nomination, she's pretty much at this point going to be likely a VP candidate, regardless of who wins the nomination. Even if it is someone like Joe Biden, if Tulsi Gabbard is able to get a number of progressive voters, there's no real reason why they wouldn't be able to, they wouldn't pick her, for the VP spot. She just seems like someone who encompasses the Bernie Sanders movement of the Democratic Party very well. I mean, she is likely going to be his VP if she loses the primary to him. And a number of Democrats have come out and said that they will be running. I mean, we have Warren, Gabbard, and possibly Biden. Julian Castro, we'll find out tomorrow. There are just so many top names about people that possibly could run for president. And this primary season is going to be very, very brutal. Every single vote will count. This is not like 2016. That was a two-man race. This is probably going to be a 10-candidate race for a while. A number of these candidates have so much money, and they are such known figures in the Democratic Party. Many of them won't drop out till after Super Tuesday. But again, looking at this video, Tulsi Gabbard's electability in terms of the Democratic primary, you can't make much of an argument with her, to be completely honest with you. She is going to get and split the vote with Elizabeth Warren, and then if any other progressives decide to run, with them as well. And you can't really see her coming from, looking at where she's from. Hawaii's not a big state. Doesn't have much to say for the Democratic primary. Clinton came from New York. Okay, I get it. Sanders came from Vermont, but he had such a large base, and it was a two-candidate race. This is going to end up being 5 to 10 candidates going against each other throughout the primary season. And of course, there will be people who will drop off. But coming from a state like Hawaii is not as powerful as coming from a state like Texas, California, Florida, New York. I mean, looking at these candidates that have are possibly going to announce their 2020 nomination, they already have one primary in the bag. She has an area where there is very, very little. There's a very little amount in terms of delegates, and it's not going to do her much good. Even though she will be getting a lot of the progressive vote, how much of it will be split with someone like Elizabeth Warren? Or even if Bernie Sanders does decide to run, or if Joe Biden decides to run, how many people will go from Gabbard to Biden following his announcement? So again, there's just so many factors that could be played in, but today we're just going to go through the Trump versus Gabbard scenario. So we're going to go ahead and characterize all these safe Trump states. I mean, they're pretty much all safe at this point in time. A number of these that I'm characterizing now are all safe for President Trump, as they were in 2016. Not much has changed since the 2018 midterms or 2016 presidential election. For the safe Democratic states, we go over to the West Coast. I forgot to characterize Alaska as a Republican state, but Maryland, Delaware, sorry about that, Maryland, actually we'll just go through it right now because that's just simpler. New Hampshire is a toss-up. Maine 2nd District is a toss-up for now. Actually, I would characterize the 1st District as a toss-up. Actually, I'm going to characterize all of Maine as a toss-up for right now because we don't know exactly how it's going to go. That pretty much finalizes all of the safe states for Tulsi Gabbard compared to safe states for Donald Trump. In terms of safe states for Tulsi Gabbard, that puts her at 182 electoral votes, Donald Trump at 125. Now we can start by moving into the likely states. So in a scenario where Tulsi Gabbard was the nominee, I would say states like Colorado and New Mexico and Virginia are likely states for the Democratic Party. Looking at the previous history in 2018, 2017, and 2016, there's just a general trend that's likely going to lead into the 2020 presidential election. The Democratic Party has done very well in 2018 in Colorado, in New Mexico, in Virginia in 2017 and 2018 and 2016. All three of these states that I just characterized, Hillary Clinton won. If she's able to win them, Tulsi Gabbard will most likely win them as well. Going up to the Northeast, though, we look at a state like Maine. That's pretty surprising because it almost went to Donald Trump in terms of the at-large state itself, and the 2nd District overwhelmingly went to the president. However, I would say that Maine at-large would go into the likely column. Though it is still a closer state than where it was with Barack Obama. That's just expected with Donald Trump gaining in voters. He likely has lost a number of those voters, especially from the Northeast. He really only pays attention to Florida, the Sun Belt, and the Rust Belt at this point. The Northeast has evacuated his mind. He's removed himself from a lot of situations. He used to campaign in Connecticut, if you remember, in 2016. That was pretty weird, to be completely honest with you. You would never really expect a GOP candidate to be campaigning in a state like Connecticut. He almost won New Hampshire, though. He almost won Maine. But the Democratic Party has since solidified its base there. Going over to the 2nd District, we're not going to characterize that one, but the 1st District I would say is safe for Tulsi Gabbard. Now, moving across the United States, where are some likely GOP states? Well, first of all, we start off in a state like Georgia. I wouldn't exactly say this one is likely. I would characterize it as a lean state, as this state is probably going to be closer than 2016. Even though it is not someone who can really appeal to African-American voters the same way someone like Joe Biden or Kamala Harris could, it's still going to be a pretty close race. Donald Trump's popularity has since dropped in a number of these states, and overall, looking at the 2018 election results, a number of these states have narrowed, Georgia, Arizona, and Texas included. Speaking of Texas, for right now, I'm going to characterize that one as a lean GOP state. It is a huge prize. It is 38 electoral votes, but it's still in the lean column, which tells them a little bit something about their campaign tactics and their candidates themselves. Looking at Donald Trump, the reason why Texas was so close, not so close, but close compared to 2012 in the 2016 presidential election was because of Donald Trump. And no real other reason. There wasn't some drastic wave of immigration between 2012 and 2016. Now, if you look at 2018, the Senate election was decided by less than 3%. A Democrat almost won a Senate race in the state of Texas. When you keep this all in mind, what's changing? Well, first of all, 2016 you could blame on Donald Trump, which personally I do think is one of the main factors and probably the only factor as to why 2016 Texas presidential race was close. Beto O'Rourke was able to tap into an area of voters that many people haven't been able to tap in before. Texas is a Republican state at heart, which is why it's still in the Trump column, despite all of this speculation about it turning blue in the year 2020. Now, Texas, again, holding on to its Republican identity, I would just say remains in the Trump column. The next time I guess it could say it could possibly flip for the Democrats would be either 2022, depending on who wins this election, or 2024. Arizona, I'm actually going to come back to. That is a very interesting state. Do not want to characterize it just yet. Going over to the state of Nevada, I would characterize that one as a lean Democratic state. I wanted to get that one out of the way for right now. The 2nd District from the state of Nebraska, I would actually say that one goes in the lean GOP column, despite the Democratic Party doing better with progressive candidates, or I guess you could say candidates that are able to appeal to Iowa voters the same way they are to Nebraska voters. I wouldn't say it's someone exactly like Barack Obama, even though Obama did it. I would say this district still remains in the lean GOP column. But when we go over across the Rust Belt, I would actually characterize Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania as lean Democratic states, if not likely Democratic states. But for right now, we're going to stick with lean. As of right now, Tulsi Gabbard has won the presidency of the United States by flipping back 3 states. However, these states are probably going to land with many Democratic nominees, depending on who wins the Democratic nomination. These 3 states alone have dropped in popularity for the president overwhelmingly. We look at the overall 2018 election results gains for the Democrats across the board. looking at the possibilities for 2020, there's no real reason why the Democratic Party should lose here unless they rerun someone like Hillary Clinton, and Tulsi Gabbard is definitely not like Hillary Clinton. She definitely has a white working class appeal, even though she comes from a state like Hawaii. Number one, her background, having a military background, and then going ahead to move on into the this area, her progressive type of campaigning in terms of the way she's able to appeal to people, just the same way Bernie Sanders was able to. That's likely what she's going to do, which is why I am very confident in her winning in the Rust Belt. However, North Carolina and Florida, I would not say are pretty much in question for right now for someone like Tulsi Gabbard. Though, Florida and North Carolina are swing states, they have remained in the Republican column for a little bit. And looking at the margins from 2016, 2014, 2012, and 2018, it's not looking too good for the Democratic Party, especially with a progressive candidate, which one failed to win in 2018, but it was a race decided by 0.4%. Going over to New Hampshire, I would say that state goes into the likely column for Tulsi Gabbard. And the 2nd district from the state of Maine, I would say very narrowly goes in favor of Donald Trump, giving him a total of 225 electoral votes. As for Iowa and Ohio, I would characterize these states as lean GOP states. They are getting closer in terms of how they voted in the past, but they still are lean GOP states regardless. They have yet to fail for the GOP. Other than the Senate race in the state of Ohio, that one was expected. The rest, the governor's race in both Iowa and Ohio, went in favor of the GOP. Iowa did turn in favor of the Democrats in terms of the House elections, but again, that's how it was before, even though it was a closer state. Still not the best sign for the Democratic Party, considering that Donald Trump won here by near 10% in 2016, unless something drastic has changed. And here's the thing that's probably going to shock a lot of you. I do think Tulsi Gabbard is going to narrowly win in the state of Arizona. We've seen candidates like Tulsi Gabbard, for example, Kirsten Sinema, do very well in the state of Arizona. If we look at some of those House districts, the one that did flipped for a pretty interesting candidate, to say the least. I mean, looking at the state of Arizona, it just took a turn in favor of the Democratic Party. Okay, 5-4 in the House of Representatives, 1-1 in the Senate elections compared to where it was before, where the GOP controlled in terms of the House. The GOP controlled both seats in terms of the Senate. And for right now, Arizona could likely go to Tulsi Gabbard. I really see her being able to appeal, especially in the Sunbelt area, which is why it has gotten closer for the president in Texas. But Colorado, New Mexico, Nevada, and Arizona go to Tulsi Gabbard. Overall, looking at this electoral map, it's not too impossible, to be completely honest with you. In fact, this is the most likely map, which is why I picked it. But again, Tulsi Gabbard probably is not going to be the Democratic nominee based on the fact that there are so many other Democrats that are probably going to run. But this finalizes today's map. So the Democratic Party with Tulsi Gabbard gets 289 electoral votes to Donald Trump's 249. Thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I'll see you all tomorrow.